Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good morning. Hi, Sol. Good morning. Good to see you. Dinah,
Good morning.
Dr. Yee, and Mike. Jackie's in the back getting some paperwork ready. Good thing that most people are watching online today. At least we are trying to reduce the amount of contact. It's part of the precautions and prevention as we respond to coronavirus or COVID-19 as it's called. My name is Charles Sine. I'm the CEO of Anti-Fragility Health. And so our workshop series continues this week. We're talking about the coronavirus, or as it is called, COVID-19. So one of the things we just want to make clear is that there's been lots of viruses in the family of coronaviruses, like the SARS and the MERS. All those viruses come from the same family, and they're all mutating differently, so their action and outcomes is very difficult to predict, and that's the big challenge with regard to the response. So today we're going to talk about I'm going to start by putting the context of our response or prevention response around our immune system, but I'm going to put that in the context of all the clinical imbalances that actually affect our health and that cause chronic illness, because I think the coronavirus thing has actually brought out and is allowing us to have a really big conversation about health and our role in health and our responsibility about our health and our community in how we take action and respond to this kind of what we're calling a pandemic, a virus attack. Okay? So let me just start by looking at the chart from, this is from Johns Hopkins, that we're looking at as we track the total numbers around the world. Total confirmed today, as at this is updated at 9:53 a.m. this morning, 150,006 people who have contracted the virus identified. The total deaths at this point are 5,614. And the very interesting number as you track this graph, right, it's really the amount of people recovered is tracking really very close to the number of people, right? We're almost at more than 50%, right, recovery, because 50% that would be around what, 75,000. So we are almost at 50% of people who have actually recovered. So that other 50%, we have then different numbers. So specifically now, let's look at the US numbers. 2,488 people have contracted it in the US. Let's look at the specific US numbers. So when we look at the specific US numbers, we are looking at a total of 51 deaths. 12 people have recovered, and most of the deaths have happened in Washington State, 5 in California, 3 in Florida, 1 in Colorado, Georgia, Kansas, New Jersey, New York, and South Dakota. So the core of where this illness is in the US is in Washington State, and I think the core thing was also in a residential facility for the elderly. So let's just have context around that. Today on NPR, they spoke about the guy who has recovered, this old man who is in a residential home in Washington, in Seattle, 88 years old man, and he's recovered, he's doing very well. And so sometimes it's important to have context about who recovers and who doesn't. But today, because I really want to address the issue of chronic illness, because at the center of looking at who recovers, we need to look at who's most at risk. And so when we look at the overall risk model for the people who are really at risk for corona, right, if we look at some of the, so let's look at risk. Who? Right? And mostly it's people who have chronic illness. And so you look at people who have cancer, you look at people who have diabetes, you look at people who have Alzheimer's, you look at people who have arthritis, right? So at the core is people with chronic illnesses, and the multiplication is if you have chronic illness 1 plus chronic illness 2, what we call comorbidities, right? Multiple chronic illnesses significantly increase your risk, right? So let's go to the core of chronic illness. So that is where I wanted to start today. Then we'll come back to talk about the specific prevention issues. So one of the big conversations that's going on right now is the conversation about testing, right? Testing. Yes, everybody's talking about testing. So let's have some real frank conversation about testing. So for COVID-19, we currently do not have a vaccine. There are lots of drugs that are being used, but we currently do not have a vaccine because you typically use vaccines to cure viruses, right? And so right now they're using a lot of antibiotics and other things, but we don't have no vaccine. So let's look at the issue of testing. So far, testing is showing that at the max, the people who've been tested, it's about 15% of all the people tested are showing positive. The challenge about testing is that I asked the question to a couple of our patients yesterday. Okay, so you're tested and you're positive, so what?
What did you do?
Yes, what did you do? Okay, now you're tested, you're positive, so what? So everybody is talking about testing. Testing is very important because here we call this as part of what we call our diagnostics. Because sometimes it's very difficult to determine whether you just have the flu or you have COVID-19. And I understand the underlying concerns there, but the action of the flu and other things around like the flu have the same kind of outcomes. And so for COVID-19, we actually do not have a vaccine and we don't have real treatment. And as we all know with flu, you need to just wait for it to get over and not get worse, right? So, but let's put the conversation about chronic illness. Let's have a conversation about what causes chronic illness, and then, because most people with chronic illness are the ones who are susceptible mostly to this viral attack because of the lower immunity. And then we'll go to the heart of immunity and see the issue of prevention. Anti-Fragility Health, as its purpose and mission, is really to prepare you for events like this. The book by Nassim Taleb talks about being anti-fragile. And he actually, this book came after the book he wrote called Black Swans. It's important that we understand what a black swan is, a black swan event. The COVID-19 is a black swan. These are events that cannot be predicted. They're very rare in occurrence, and their impact can be very devastating. That's a black swan. We could not have predicted this event. And his response to preparing for the black swan event was to build a capability called anti-fragility, to be anti-fragile, right? And so let's explore what anti-fragile is. Anti-fragility is beyond the spectrum of, we start with being fragile to being anti-agile to being robust to being agile and then to being anti-fragile. So that's the spectrum of positions that you're going to be in your life. So briefly, fragile are things that break and do not recover, right? You break the glass, that's it. Anti-agile are things that don't have the agility or ability for resilience actually recover. They also break, but they can recover, but not as good as the original. Robust is like a plastic cup. It gets damaged, but it doesn't break, right? And then agile is like falling and standing up again and running, right? But there's some damage. But anti-fragile actually goes to the extreme in that when you fall, you actually recover better than where you were, right? And that is really what we want to talk about today. How do you build an immune system that allows you to be anti-fragile against all the in an ecosystem of bacteria and viruses? In our microbiome, we live with bacteria and viruses. So we should not make as if this virus is a strange animal. It will always be around us, and therefore the question is, how do we build a capacity and capability to live with bacteria and viruses in harmony, so they don't harm us in ways as the COVID-19 is harming us. Okay, so let's start with talking about the clinical imbalances that actually lead to chronic illness. There are 8 clinical imbalances. 8 clinical imbalances. So let's talk about those imbalances. Okay, so what are clinical imbalances? So, hello, so what are clinical imbalances? I'll help you. So we measure a lot of our biological health or our health using certain what we call clinical biomarkers. Let's say blood pressure, right? Blood pressure. Blood pressure normal is 120/80. Blood pressure abnormal might be 110/60. Blood pressure abnormal may be 140/100. Right? This is hypotension. A lot of women have it. And this is hypertension. This is a clinical imbalance with regard to your blood pressure. Do you understand that? Is that making sense? So when we talk about clinical imbalances, we are looking at things that are not normal. So we have the normal, and this is outside of the normal. And these are indicators that we measure. Whenever you go to the doctor and they run your labs, they are measuring your clinical biomarkers. Clinical biomarkers are indicators of clinical imbalances. Is that making sense? So we'll measure your flow rate for your kidney. We'll measure the amount of potassium, calcium. Do you understand? We'll measure your HbA1c. All of those are clinical biomarkers that are indicators of clinical imbalances. This is a very important point that we need to understand. All right, let's talk about the big 8 clinical imbalances, and then we'll focus on one of them, which is the immune imbalances, which is what causes or makes us reduces our ability to fight the attack of viruses and therefore succumb and potentially die from a virus attack like COVID-19. Okay? The number 1 clinical imbalance in my book is GI imbalances. Number 2 is immune. Number 3 is cardiometabolic. Number 4 is musculoskeletal. Number 5 is hormone. Number 6 is stress. Number 7 is, sorry? Energy, metabolism. And number 8 is cognition. So let me just go through them again. Those are the 8 imbalances that typically we would observe clinically, and those are the things we would typically measure, right? We measure cognition here in our office when we measure your memory loss and your ability to remember things and to have the executive function, which are indicators of dementia and Alzheimer's and all the other things that are tied with cognition, right? So we have a lot of clinical biomarkers around that. For energy, we tend to look at fatigue, and the issues around fatigue would tell us that there is a problem with your energy metabolism, and we have measurements for that. Stress, we are all familiar with that. We've spoken a lot about stress, the 4 kinds of stress, and how these issues of stress, chronic stress, leads to a lot of chronic illness, right? We talk a lot about hormonal imbalances. We talk about cortisol, the sex hormones from the adrenals, and so there's a lot of imbalances and it causes a lot of issues. We talk about musculoskeletal, which is really the issues around pain and muscles and cartilage and bone. So a lot of the imbalances around that are very challenging imbalances. We talk about cardiometabolic, things about your heart, your blood pressure, and the issues of your kidney and your liver that are in that whole architecture to support your cardiometabolics. We talk about the immune system, which is going to be a big topic today. When the immune system is compromised, what happens around that? And then we also talk about the GI, which is really tied also to our metabolism, absorption, and all the issues around that. These are the 8 principal clinical imbalances that would affect all of us. The challenge is that they don't show up only one by one. They show up as a combination. And that is why it is very difficult to treat. And so in functional medicine, that's why we talk about precision and personalization, because we need to find out exactly which ones you have, and we need to understand for your person what combination that is. So we call chronic illness as being multifactorial, because these are all the factors. Say for example, right, you could have low hormones, you could have good musculoskeletal, you could have high cardio, you could have okay immune, you could have issues with GI, you could have good stress, you could have high energy, and you could have low cognition. So when we take this combination, it results in a type of chronic illness. Is that making sense? That's why chronic illness is very challenging to decipher. And the position that pharmaceutical companies have taken is to try and treat each of these independently. And that is very challenging. You get that? The functional medicine approach is that we believe if we give the body the lifestyle things that the body needs, the body is going to resolve the underlying issues. So let's talk about those lifestyle levers that we can give that would get the body to sort and address its underlying issue. Okay, all right. So what are those lifestyle issues? Thank you, Dr. What are those lifestyle issues? So the lifestyle issues, we typically start with the big ones, which number one is what we call nutritional biochemistry. I'm changing it from just saying macronutrients because that does not address the challenging issues of food and nutrients. Number two is sleep. Number three is hydration. Number four is exercise. Number five is what we call exogenous molecules. And what is in exogenous molecules? It's supplementation, medication, and things like stem cells. Things that we bring from outside to give the body so that it can be augmented. Number six is toxicity. Number seven is, what am I missing? Number seven is, stress. I was going to say meditation. And then number eight, I can't remember now. But so those are what we call the lifestyle levers. What are these lifestyle levers? These are the things that you do optimally. We call them lifestyle levers. They are the habits that you need to develop so that you can have what we call optimal biological function. All right? And I'll go through each of them just briefly, and then we'll come back into the context of the immune system. Okay? I'm giving you an overview here. So in nutritional biochemistry, we talk about three things. We talk about diet restriction, we talk about calorie restriction, and we talk about time-restricted feeding, right? Those are some of the three things we talk about. So it's very important you understand that. For sleep, we know that sleep has to be 8 hours, right? Again, for this, we have diet restriction, calorie restriction, and time-restricted feeding. Hydration, we know that it is about 8 to 10 cups of water we need to drink a day. Exercise, we know it's about 30 minutes a day, a couple of times a week. Exogenous molecules, we talk about the RDA in terms of supplements, and for some people medications, or we use some medicinal phytonutrients like ginseng, turmeric, and things like that. And for repair and regeneration, we also use stem cells, right? For toxicity, we know that we are looking at air, water, and food to understand that. And then for stress, we all know the big stress issues, okay? So if you do these things optimally, and so I'm going to call this lifestyle levers. These are the things you can control. If you control these things very well, you will achieve what we call optimal biological function, which means that you will address a lot of these imbalances. Is that making sense? So, okay? And so, the challenge is that people are just afraid, but they haven't actually gone to the heart of the matter. And what is the heart of the matter is, how do we achieve optimal biological function with regard to our immune system? That's the question we want to talk about now. Okay? Any comments, questions so far? Any questions so? No? We're good? Oh, the cover is running away from me. We're good? Any questions? Any questions online? Facebook? No questions? All right. All right. So let's go to the next step. So if you notice that the immune, sorry, we're good. Okay. The immune system, we're going to talk about now, and its imbalances are really critical for the body. So let's talk about it. Dinah, why do we need an immune system? What is the use of an immune system?
It's our defensive. It's our defense to insults in the body. So
It's a defense to what?
it's our defensive system to take care of whatever external coming into the body.
Okay, so Dinah is saying that our immune system is for defense. What is our offensive system?
Our inflammation.
Interesting, right? So the immune system is really for defense. Right? Because it protects. Right? It protects and defends. What's our offensive system? It's our hormonal system, our cortisol, right? Because that's what drives the adrenaline and allows us to fight or to flight. Isn't it? Right? So we have two ways of running our attack system. Right? The first one is, right, we have the offensive system that allows us to overwhelm. And then the body has a defensive system if the attack penetrates our offense and gets to us. Unfortunately, viruses, we can do things, and we're going to talk about our offensive strategy against viruses and our defensive strategy against viruses. Because if you don't look at it in that context, then you don't really understand it. Right? Is that making sense? So now, what is our offensive strategy against viruses and bacteria? What's our offensive strategy? So, number one. What's our number one strategy, our offensive strategy?
You said hormones?
No, you're going inside.
Oh, it's
Yeah. Think about it. What is our offensive strategy? What are the things we do so that the viruses or bacteria don't even come into us? Personal hygiene. Number one, you wash your hands. Right? You wash your hands. You take a bath. Why are you washing your hands? Let's talk about that. Why are you washing your hands? Because a lot of people think it's an option. Why is it that now we're just talking about why do you wash your hands, Dr. E? She doesn't like me asking questions live. Her brain fried already. We're washing hands because we want to reduce the bacterial load.
Because you usually touch things.
Yes.
Automatically we.
It's like yesterday, was it Prasan was coming downstairs and he was touching the railings. And I'm like, Prasan, you're not a kid. Why are you touching the railings? Because imagine you touch that railings and then you touch your face.
You're done.
A lot of shit is on that railings. Right? My mother taught me that when I was 7 years old. Don't touch the railings. Walk by yourself. You don't need to support. You're not old. Right? If you notice, I don't touch when I'm climbing things. I use my self-support. First of all, that stability and strength is very important for you. So we wash hands. What is our second defense? Because now is what? We are reducing the viral and so I want to know, why are we reducing the bacterial load? So why do we need to reduce the bacterial load?
So our immune system will focus on the things which they really need to focus on.
All right. So did you hear what he's saying? That's why we build an army. You know, there are a lot of people say we don't need an army. You cannot build the army on the day of the attack. When they attack, oh my God, we need now to build an army. So you build an army
to prepare.
to prepare, exactly. That's why you're reducing the bacterial load so that your immune system is ready, right? And the second most important thing you do is dental hygiene. Right? And what is the third most important thing you do? There are three big things. Huh?
Nutrients.
No, we're not there yet. That's a defensive issue. Yeah, yes, I could say offensive, but I don't want to go there. I'm talking now about reducing the bacterial load. The third thing is your contact with other people.
Social distance.
Yes, that's what they're now calling it. Social distance. Because, why is social distance important?
Because when they sneeze, that's how you
No, that's not the reason why that's important. It's important because you don't know whether those other people are doing those things.
Yes.
The
Okay.
transmission.
Right? It's because you don't know what their bacterial load is and what they have. So social distance does not bring you into their microbiome. Right?
Just reducing the risk.
Yeah, you're reducing your risk. That's all we're doing here. Because the more you are in contact with other people and they share their bacteria with you, the more you're challenging your immune system. Right? So the less, that's why you find out that monks and nuns rarely get sick from flu or anything. Right? The more you are in contact with new people, don't forget that. One of the challenges why we got a lot of infectious diseases, right, was when foreigners came into the land, right? If you look at most cultures, when foreigners came, they brought their own diseases. See, like those mountain people in the Philippines, they are clean, they don't have problems. Then we start going there and they start getting sick, right? Because we bring our own illnesses and diseases into them. And so these are really big offensive strategies. And I would leave it at this level because it's very important that the reason you're washing your hands is that we live in an ecosystem of bacteria, right? So you must use soap. So just washing your hands without soap is not good enough,
Yeah.
right? You must wash your hands with soap. That's why we have soap in the bathroom. Some people just think rinsing their hands is okay. It's not. You actually have to wash your hand with soap to reduce the bacterial load. Why? Because like me, you're going to touch your eye, you're going to touch your nose, you're going to touch your face, you're going to touch, when I go to pee, I'm going to hold it, right? My hands are dirty. And that bacteria then is carried everywhere, and that's why we have a lot of infection. Let's talk about dental hygiene. You know, recently I was just telling Dr. Yi, I started using this tooth gel that we have, and I found it very interesting, right? It's a natural gel. It has silver salt infused, and it has a triple action glacial mint. But let me read what it says. Why silver salt? It is safe for the whole family. It is strong. It's up to 100 times more powerful than ionic, atomic, or micronized or other colloidal silver particles. We all know that silver kills bacteria, right? What does silver do? It penetrates the biofilm that bacteria creates, disintegrates it, and excretes it. That's why silver solution is very good at very low doses. This is a patented, it's strong support, strong body, and silver strong. But something else I was reading, it says it says brush your teeth with it one night like you would do any other toothpaste and do not rinse out. The next morning, I think you'll find your teeth and gums are still clean and smooth, unlike anything you've tried before. That's a challenge. And I tried it the other night. And I went to look at my pink tongue the next morning, and it was still pink. There was no white coating. Very important. Try your own toothpaste cannot deliver that. Very important that we understand that, okay? So, why is dental hygiene so important? We all know that dental hygiene is at the core of a lot of chronic illnesses and inflammation. Why? We have
You swallow.
all the time. And we have a lot of bacteria in the mouth. Why do we have bacteria in the mouth? Please, that noise on the background, it's catching in the video. Okay? So the amount of bacteria that we have in the mouth is really challenging, and it is there to break down the food during mastication. But we are swallowing all the time. So if you don't have good dental hygiene and you have periodontitis or some dental challenges, right, all of that bacteria is going into the stomach every time you swallow. And so it causes a lot of big problems. Social contact. You know, a lot of people do not do those first two things. So social contact demands so that you don't go kissing people that you don't know, right? So you don't shake their hands because you don't know where those hands are coming from. Like Prasant, he might have been holding the railings. Like there's this video on Facebook where the mother is cleaning the kid and the kid is licking the railing at the airport. Right, you know, little kid. The kid is licking the railings at the airport and you're like, oh my God. Right, so social contact and social distance. Most times when I'm at airport, I'm watching little kids, and you know what most people do? They put their kids on the floor at the airport. What do you think is going to happen?
Getting on the bacteria.
And they think it's fun.
Harvesting.
I mean, look at most people in the airport, they put their kids on the ground. Shocking, isn't it? Imagine how much bacteria that kid is collecting, right? You know, a lot of people consciously don't know how much bacteria is around us and viruses, right? They think it's an alien thing. No, around us right now are billions and trillions, and even inside our system are trillions of bacteria. So it's very important that as an offensive strategy, you reduce the bacterial load, right? That's really the big thing. You want to reduce it, right? That's why we do certain things that we do in life. Okay, let's talk about our defense, right? Or we can continue talking about offense. Let me just explore a couple of things. So one of the reasons why we look at, say, an offensive and defensive strategy together is that a lot of these things that we would do causes inflammation. So when the bacterial load is high, we also have high inflammation, right? Like in the gut. So if you are not cleaning your gut very well, you're going to have high inflammation. And high inflammation means that the immune system has to be available, because that's what is a response to inflammation. And the immune system shows up because it has to harness, defend, while we are rebuilding the architecture of what the problem is, right? The second one is stress. When the body is stressed, and I think I was teaching this yesterday, our stress response implicitly lowers our immune system, because it's taking all the energy for us to fight or flight. And so when you're always stressed, cortisol and all of that, adrenaline is high, it suppresses the immune system, and therefore you're vulnerable. So being stressed, and we know what causes stress, right? There are 4 things that cause stress. Number 1 is perception, fear, that big word called fear. Number 2 is sleep, deprivation. Number 3 is inflammation. And number 4 is sugar, right? Glycemic dysregulation. So when you look at those 4 things, they actually lower your immune system, right? And so it's important that you do certain things to actually calm yourself down. Whatever you use, we have supplements for that, to calm you down. We have patients who came here yesterday really, really scared because of the news around coronavirus. Some people think that coronavirus is like an illegal alien that's looking for you, or an armed robber looking for you, trying to attack you, right? The coronavirus is trying to survive. And as a virus, it cannot survive without a host cell, right? And that's all it's looking for. And so if you give it that host cell and your defenses are not very strong, then it will take over your body. And that's really what it's doing, right? So we want to look at something else that really affects it critically. One of the other things you want to look at is toxicity. So how do you reduce your toxicity? Because think about it. When you have a lot of toxicity inside of you, your immune system is also compromised. Because these are foreign agents, and the body is like, we need to guard this, because it might end up doing some harm. That's
Detox.
what. Sorry?
You do detox.
Yeah, so you do detox, and you daily take things that will remove all the foreign metals, but you also do an offensive that you don't use things that is going to increase your levels of toxicity, right? Is that making sense? So we've talked about inflammation, we've talked about stress. We want to also look at exercise. These are some critical offensive and defensive strategies, and then we're going to go to the heart of the immune system. How are we doing so far? Are you following me, Saul, Dinah, and everybody? You're following me? So it's very important that rather than be afraid of corona, these are the things that you should be doing, right? Reducing your toxicity, reducing your stress, getting more exercise and fresh air, reducing your inflammation. So now let's talk about the immune system and how the immune system actually works, and some of our solutions to the immune system. So the immune system, the architecture of the immune system is structured. You know, the architect of God created a very interesting immune system. He created what we call the innate and the adaptive. All right, so when anything comes to attack, the response is with the innate immune system. I'm not going to go into the details of the B cells and the T cells or the lymphocytes. I could just call them here lymphocytes. What are lymphocytes? So, what are lymphocytes?
I don't know.
When you go to do your blood test and they do the CBC, the complete blood count, what else do they count? What else does your doctor tell you when he's looking at that blood test?
The red and the white cells.
Okay, what is the function of the red white cells? Why is he counting the red cells? It's important so that we know this, because that's the oxygenation. That's what carries your blood. We want to make sure that you have high oxygenation, that your blood is red, looking really good, because the iron properties in the blood, hemoglobin, is carrying the oxygen, and that's what takes oxygen to all the cells, which is required for the creation of ATP and energy, right? Very important. White blood cells, what are they?
The white,
The white blood cells.
that's the one that fights infection.
Yeah, those are the lymphocytes. Yes. So that's why when we do a complete CBC, we're looking at the white blood cells and the... So if you had an infection and your body was fighting, what would happen to the count of white blood cells? So I'm focused on you today.
It will lower.
No.
Oh, it will be higher.
Why?
Oh, because it's fighting.
So our body produces more. So if you have infection, your white blood cells are going to be very high. That's what the doctor would know. Something is going on, right? Why is your white blood cells count so high? Something is going on. Do you see that? And when it's too low, what's happening? So it means you forget to lock the door when you were going to sleep at night.
Oh,
You have not built up enough.
the burglar got in.
Exactly. Coronavirus can slide in through this door because the lymphocytes were asleep. Right? How do we build a robust, innate immune system? It's very important. We came with it. But some people didn't come with it. Right? Some people, the only way you came is if you have natural birth.
Oh,
If you are CS, you do not have a powerful innate immune system. God wasn't stupid.
I'm compromised then.
You are.
Yeah.
That's a challenge. Yes. So if you have a compromised immune system already, you have to fortify it on the innate side before we even start talking about the adaptive. So when the virus comes in and these boys say, we don't know this guy, we cannot recognize it, they call for special forces. That's what the adaptive immune system is. They call for their special forces. Do you guys know this guy? Because when you were vaccinated, you build some adaptive response. Because it's not all the time that you're going to be fighting this. So they have built, right, like measles and all of those things, you built the adaptive response to measles, right? You build the adaptive response to when you take the vaccination to some flu types. What else do we vaccinate? Tuberculosis, TB, rubella, malaria. So, sorry? Flu, yes, right? All of those is to build this adaptive immune system. What's the adaptive immune system? That's a very important issue. Our immune system can only fight when it can identify the enemy. Right? So you cannot fight the enemy in the dark. You need to say, oh, it's Prasad. He's Indian. So if I punch him in the face, he's gonna die because Indians are weak in the face. Right? I'm just saying, right? Or if I shoot him, right, in his leg, then I can knock him down. He cannot run anymore, right? If you cannot identify what the person, the attacker is, then you don't have a strategy. So these systems, because they already have recognition, they know how to kill those bacterial viruses. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
They know the strategy already. So the reason why people are panicking about coronavirus is because we do not have the adaptive immunity. So what happens in healthy people? The body, when coronavirus comes in, these guys say, hello, we need help. These people say, we cannot recognize it, but it looks like something that we could build very quickly. Let's go engage in the war, and in the process, oh, these are spike proteins, and it attaches in these receptors, and that is how it's damaged these cells. Go build some new fighters quickly. That's why you have the fever and then the recovery. During the fever, the war is on, and your immune system is building the NK killer cells that are going to be deployed, like the special forces that are going to be deployed. So you have that fever, you'll be shaking, sweating, and then you see that. That's if you have a strong immune system. right? If you have a weak immune system, it comes and then your immune is shaking. There's no backup. You keep calling the special forces, they're not showing up. Then you are like, oh shit, we need respirator. Oh, he's in coma, right? Special forces they're waiting for. Where are the special forces?
They're gone.
No, they didn't go. They were already deployed to other things in your body. They're busy. And then because your microcirculation is also slow, they cannot come in time, your lymphatic system is compromised, because don't forget that these viruses are also smart. When they've compromised, they have their guards standing also. When your immune system comes, they knock it down. New immune system, they knock it down. They're taking over your body. They are now in charge. You get that? So that fight, what they call the cytokine storm, it's a big fight, and that's what causes fever. Your temperature rises because the war is going on in your body, and you can come out healthy or you die. Do you understand? That's really it. That's why my culture, when you have that high fever, mostly for us it was malaria fever, they wanted to cool your body down, because the cooling actually gets the special forces to go faster and slow down the spread of the virus throughout your body, right? So that temperature rise, even though it's good for the fight, you want to bring the temperature rise to the normal temperature, because the normal body temperature is when these boys are most active and most potent. But the bacteria likes that higher temperature, because then it can overwhelm the immune system. You understand? So that fever is something that we want to bring down and we want to manage. Is this making sense? So how do you then build this innate and the adaptive immune system? So what do you think? Because you came compromised. When you come
Vaccines.
compromised, what does that mean?
The vaccines, you take the necessary vaccine.
Yeah, that's one, but the vaccine is building your adaptive.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Because not every country has the same vaccinations.
Yes.
And the reason is because not every country is exposed to the same kind of illnesses, right? So, but how do you build your innate if you have a compromised innate system?
I don't know.
It's your GI. Because when you come out of your mother's womb, the first thing because that's your first line of defense, your skin and your GI are the largest areas for the immune system to cover. So that's why it's important that you always really take very good care of your GI. And as we are clear about our GI products, right, we look at three things, right? We look at fiber, which is the prebiotic. We look at the probiotic, which are the good bacteria, and we look at the enzymes. Because we want an easy GI process. So that's why we encourage you to take those three things. That makes an easy GI. Because especially the probiotics,
For absorption.
well, no, the probiotics are the ones who tell the immune system everything is okay. Do you understand? The balance, this diversity of good bacteria to bad bacteria, this balance is a signal to the immune system that we're okay. It's very important. That's why you need that balance. Now the immune system will say, we need to stand reserve in case of any other attacks. So if you have a compromised GI tract, it means that your immune system is guarding the most important asset in the body, which is the nutrient absorption architecture. Is that making sense? So that's one of the first big things that you want to deal with, right? The second thing is augmenting the adaptive. So we have a couple of products that do that. So for example, my favorite set of products, I didn't bring it out, let me grab it. So we have what we call Immunocore, but no, let me start with this one. This is my best product for the immune system because it says that it nurtures healthy NK levels. NK levels are what we call natural killer cells. These are those bad boys, right? Special forces. That's what it does. Also, it promotes healthy T1, TH1, TH2 modulation. So the TH1, TH2, TH17, these are all cells that are very active and they need to be in a certain balance to make our response appropriate. It's almost like the balanced use of the Navy, the Air Force, and the land forces, right? To make sure that we use them appropriately. Very important product. That's helping you boost your adaptive immune system, right? So that because the virus is a new virus that they don't know, it is helping for them to go manufacture. Well, first of all, it's helping them learn what this new virus is. 2, go manufacture the mast cells or the blastocytes that are going to fight. Do you understand? That's what the support is. Very important. We have a very important product here from Orthomolecular. It's called Veraseed. And it has a lot of phytonutrients that really augment the immune system. Actually, if you go on Amazon, this product is sold out. They actually don't have any of this product. And Amazon sells it about $100 and we sell it $37. So for all of those of you watching online, you can rush here to get the last few ones we have, Veraseed. This one is also from Orthomolecular. This one addresses the whole immune system. Just looking for those. Wheat germ has for a long time been the source. Fermented wheat germ, like fermented kimchi or kombucha, fermented products, right? Allow the immune system, boosts it and gives it a lot of practice with good bacteria and good things. Fermented products, well fermented products, right? Because some fermented products become actually very dangerous, and so we need to be very careful that the fermentation is a managed fermentation, right? If you look at the way the kimchi is made, you can see it's a managed fermentation. So it produces the right kind of things that would help the immune system. One of the other things that, so you see when we're talking here about the whole offensive strategy of reducing your bacterial load. So you know that for most of us, even when you detox, you don't get to the heart because detox is really cleansing the liver and the kidney. But there's still a lot of bacteria in all the other organs that are hiding. And they're hiding there in terms of the bacterial film and things like that. So we recommend products like the BioDisrupt. It's a comprehensive microbial support. It reinforces the normal microbial balance. It supports ideal cellular communication and promotes healthy extracellular matrix. So think about it, right? This adaptive immune system, think about it. If these cells are not communicating with each other very well, they cannot respond to the attack very well, right? That's why in the army, they use special communication gear that the enemy cannot hear, right? they use code. So we can communicate and say the enemy is now coming on the left side, or the enemy is moving to the right side, right? So that we can respond appropriately. So when they talk about cellular communication, that is the critical issue about the response. Most people have a compromised cellular communication architecture, which is part of aging. Your cells are not talking to each other very quickly. See how children recover very quickly? For example, this coronavirus, it really rarely attacks children. Actually, all the research shows that really children are spared from this virus, which is kind of strange, right? Because it's kids who have flus all the time. But so it's very important. And then we have this product, which is hydrochlorous acid. This liquid, it's deployed in this fancy, beautiful setting that you can carry in a pouch. It's very beautiful. And you just spray on your face and on your hands, and it kills almost 99.9% of all the bacteria. Don't forget, it's not killing viruses, because we don't have things that can kill viruses. It's killing the bacteria. And again, it goes to the offensive strategy of reducing the bacterial load. Very important, guys. Okay, so I'm going to be concluding shortly. I want to take questions and then I'll try and wrap this up. Any questions? So what actions are you going to take today, to make sure that your friends and your family don't panic because they watch the news and they're panicking? What makes you not to panic, Saul? I guess because you attend my workshops.
Yeah.
So that makes you not panic.
No. Yeah.
So tell me, what is it about my workshop that make you not panic? Is it because I'm so...
We're informed.
Oh, I thought it's because I'm so good looking.
Oh, that's one of it.
Okay, because you're well informed. So you see that information
Yes.
and knowledge is at the core of why a lot of people are panicking. Especially buying toilet tissue, right?
Yeah.
In Africa, we can use water to wash our ass. So buying tissue is not really...
Even in the Philippines.
Right, and water is actually cleaner in washing your ass than using tissue. So the response about toilet roll is kind of silly. What about you, Dinah? What actions are you going to be taking to ensure?
I have informed my friends what to share in the information. There's nothing to be afraid of. They just have to follow the protocol, but stay off from all the news that's not helpful, and
Correct.
just do the things that are more informed decisions.
Okay.
But also prepare.
Yeah.
Prepare for
Yeah, so it's very important. And also what I want both of you to do, and my team also, share the video on Facebook to your friends. So because the less people who are panicking, it allows our economy to recover. Because most of what is affecting the economy is just panic, right? It's not like 2008. The fundamentals of the economy are strong. We're just panicking. And so one of the sheets I want to distribute. So you see where coronavirus is with regard to all the different things that have happened that are viruses. So let me help you look at it. So on the x-axis, X, the one low, is the viruses that spread really, really fast. And you can see that measles and chickenpox go faster than coronavirus, right? Are you understanding? Stay with me. Stop looking at other stuff. Just look at that line.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the ones that spread fastest. You see measles and chickenpox. Where is corona? It's around common cold, right? Do you see it, Saul? I want you to understand the graph. Common cold. Go to the left hand, you'll see common cold down there.
Yeah.
All right? Corona is in the yellow box.
It's in this one.
Did you see that?
Mhm.
All right. So what does that mean, so?
It's not,
Spreading as fast as measles or chickenpox.
box. Yeah.
Okay, now let's look at the x-axis, the y-axis. And that's more deadly. So which is more deadly looking at that?
Small bird flu.
Bird flu, you can see it, right? MERS, Ebola, SARS, smallpox. So what is this telling you, soul? Because I want you to understand this.
Bird flu is the one that there is more deadly. The
Yeah. So when you look at coronavirus in there, what does it say to you?
It's down here.
It means that in the context of very deadly and fast spreading, corona is really not that dangerous. Right? That's the data. Is that clear? All right? And so the fear, because when Ebola was there, the stock market didn't fall like that. When SARS was there, the stock market didn't fall like that. So now, the panic,
It's the panic.
it is the panic from the press, right? It's very important that we have that. Now, let's turn to the next page, which is really the message I want to leave as part of this workshop. It says that I see a lot of people being like, I would survive the coronavirus, I'm taking my chances. These are people who are not being serious, right? In terms of the offensive and the defensive. So even though I said corona is not as dangerous as smallpox or the other things, right? It's not as dangerous as smallpox or chickenpox because I can have them in context. You know, chickenpox and smallpox kill a lot of children, right? But it does not mean you should not take the action because of social distance. The way I see it here, I would survive it, but I might carry it to someone who wouldn't. And that's what the problem is. Are we clear about this? Even though I know I'm healthy, I have to take the offensive strategies because I might infect somebody else. Are we clear about this? Okay, so, and that is the key message. In a country where we have freedom and choice, diseases like this are very dangerous.
Yeah, and from what I heard, somebody who is infected doesn't even know he is infected. And
Yes.
he's,
Exactly.
Spreading it.
Thank you. Very important point, so you may not even know you're carrying it because carrying and being infected are two different things. You might not know you're carrying it. It's like HIV.
Uh-huh.
And you might be infecting other people because you're not taking the precautions.
Yeah.
You understand? So it's very important that we appreciate and put the disease in context, but also be very mindful about the strategies that we spoke about this morning. Is that making sense?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for the workshop today. For those watching online, deep appreciation for your time. And I think you can download it, the attachments that we put for the workshop. You can go to the our web store to look for the products that we spoke about. And share this video with your friends and have a watch party where you can discuss so that people would panic less and not destroy our economy. We went to a restaurant last night and sales are almost 80% down. People are losing their jobs because nobody wants to go eat out, right? We're going to destroy our economy because all those restaurants that we enjoy, if we are not going to go and eat there, those restaurants will not be there in a month's time. And whose loss would it be? Our loss, right? Because our favorite places where we go and buy things will not be in existence, right? Even hotels, the bookings, You know, all conferences this year in Vegas have been canceled. People are losing their jobs, right, just because we are panicking. You understand? So my objective today was two. Number one, put the disease in context. And number two, take the offensive and the defensive actions required for us to all be healthy and safe. Have a good day. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.